3, 2, 1. I'm Orbach. I practice chiropractic here at the World of Wellness. I hold a designation about being a primary spinal practitioner. I went to chiropractic school at Cleveland College in Kansas City, Missouri, and I did the primary spinal practitioner program at Pitt. It was the first program of its kind, open to both chiropractors, physical therapists, osteopaths, people who practice what are called the manipulative sciences, which is basically what I do. But I do a little bit more than that. And what we're here to talk about is exactly that, what I do here, and the brain body connection between chiropractic and the related techniques and the related disciplines, and how we use the body as a tool to influence the brain. So, I want to get into detail about what it is that I specifically do. But before I do, let's practice a little brain body communication. A little use the body as stimulation to get the brain to fire at a different rate. So, if you are here as part of my live audience and you feel like indulging me in participating, if you're at home watching on Facebook or YouTube or whichever media outlet you are indulging in, if you're in a place where you can just stand up, please do so. If you're driving, if you're at work and sneaking in a little bit of Dr. Orbach time on your device and don't want anybody to know, I don't want to get you in trouble. So if you're with me though, what I'd like you to do is stand, spread your feet to just wider than shoulder width apart, and we're going to bring our arms up overhead, and we're going to reach for the spot where the ceiling and the wall meets on either side, sort of like a capital Y. This is an I, here's a T, in between we're at a Y. So maybe we're kind of signifying victory, and we're just going to hold this position for 1001, 1002, and at some point I expect people's shoulders to start getting tired and sore, and if that's you, we're going to have to practice this more. If it's not you, please just indulge me and keep holding your arms up for a second or two longer. And okay, and let's put these back down. You should feel a little bit of an energetic shift. Maybe by standing in that position, you feel just a little bit more alert. Maybe you feel just a little bit more powerful. But that's what's called a power position or a power posture. If you're interested in learning more about that, send me a message on Facebook, as I'm very good at replying to instant messages and text messages on Facebook, but I pretty much ignore my phone otherwise. So, power posture number one. When we stand in certain positions or when we move in specific ways, we use our body as a tool to drive our subconscious mind, to stimulate our brain through the subconscious mind to be more powerful, more alert, more of a authoritarian. We use it as a tool to stimulate ourselves, brain body connection. So I want you to grasp the concept that when I look at my patients, I see a brain. I see a brain. I see a nervous system coming out of that brain, and that nervous system is communicating with the body. And the body's job is to protect the brain, to move the brain around, to nourish the brain. And we have reciprocal communication back and forth from the brain to the body to the brain at all times. 3 trillion bits of information per second are transmitted from the brain out to the body. So, what's a bit of information? Well, the fact that I'm standing here talking to you guys, that would be a bit of information. The fact that I'm wearing a mostly blue shirt, there's another bit of information. I'm in a mostly blue tie. Now we're up to 3. So, of those 3 trillion bits of information that we're processing every single second, approximately 50 of them are conscious. So, our unconscious mind, our unconscious brain body communication is really running away with itself, having this big escape. And that's most of what is going on with us all day long from a neurological perspective, from a brain based perspective. All of our communication internally, minus 50 bits of information per second, are subconscious. Now, I would guess that most of you, and if not all of you, let me make you guys aware that even as we speak, Your digestive tract is in activity. Maybe it's digesting and absorbing nutrients from food. Maybe it's producing new neurotransmitters. Maybe it's just warehousing your immune system, waiting for it to be called into action. But your digestive tract is a happening place right now. It's happening because I'm telling you so. Probably not because you can feel it. If you can literally feel your neurotransmitters being synthesized in your digestive tract at this moment or at any moment, I'm extremely impressed because that's largely considered to be subconscious activity. It's happening. Many, many bits of information over every single second. 3 trillion bits of information occurring per second. All of them except 50 are conscious that you're aware of the stuff that you're unaware of. Hey, neurotransmitter synthesis happening in your digestive tract. Every single physiology textbook will tell you so, but that doesn't mean you can feel it. It's unconscious. So far, so good. I like to check in with IT savant Phil, who's off camera over to my right periodically, and make sure that if there are questions, if there are comments, if there are moral outrages, if there are tangents that need to be gone off on and addressed, he's monitoring my online communication. So just because you're not physically present doesn't mean I don't think about you as a participant. So please feel welcome to join in the conversation and the activity. Most comments welcome. Okay, so let's do this one more time. Everybody spread your legs to a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. We're going to pick our arms up. We're going to reach out for the spot where the ceiling and the wall meet and on either side. And we're just going to stand here focused on those spots. And we're just going to simply feel powerful. So we're going to hold this. We're going to hold this some more. We're going to hold this again. If you have a big job interview coming up, if you have to go to court to testify, if you're a chiropractor about to deal with a new patient and meet them and interact with them, and you want to think about how can I focus myself to really recruit all the powers within me to do my best for this person. If you're a teacher about to meet a new class for the first time, and maybe you just want to stand in a private place before you have to go on and put yourself in a posture like this where I'm reaching for the spot where the ceiling and the wall meet. I'm making myself as big as possible, and I'm driving my subconscious mind to influence my conscious mind to feel stronger, to feel more powerful, to feel more like an authority figure. Okay, we'll relax that. So, as I told you, once again, my name is Gideon Orbach. I've been practicing chiropractic for closing in on 22 years, and almost 16 of which have been here with this group. I've practiced on our South Side office with Dr. Weiner, the late great Dr. Weiner. We moved to this building that we're currently in Green Tree, conveniently located just off of Highway 376, not too far from Highway 79. More than a stone's throw, but only a few exits from downtown Pittsburgh. So we're accessible if you're in the region. And we see, because of what we do here and because of the scope of the different conditions that we treat, we've certainly seen quite a few patients who came to see us from outside of our region. In our store, in our building, we're the single tenant, we have our clinic, and besides our clinic, we have a state of the art nutrition store, which is absolutely huge. Our nutrition store, in terms of square footage, in terms of product diversity, certainly rivals any commercial nutrition store you would find at a strip mall or anywhere of that ilk. So we have some really good stuff going on in that regard. I practice here with my colleague, Dr. Phil Ross, who's also a chiropractor. Alicia Black is our new nutritionist, and there are a number of other people who work here who are very capable of helping with nutritional questions and helping people get on track with a program or maybe putting a foundation into place. Now, before I get into what I specifically do, I got a question that I'm polling my crowd, both the people who are live here and in person and the people who are out in virtual land hanging out with us. What does it mean to be healthy? All of us come to Wellness Week looking for maybe for answers, looking for discounted product, maybe looking to just network with and meet people who have a like-minded attitude. And we all want to be healthier. But let's take a step back. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? Can you define the word health? How's our virtual land crowd looking? How's our real world crowd? Real world crowd looks good too. All right. Nobody wants to play along with me on this one. I'm the only one in the room that doesn't have a fear of public speaking. So when I think about the word health, my definition of the word health means having the ability to recognize, interact with, adapt to, and overcome your environment, both internally and externally. So our internal environment, what's that? That's the chemistry, that's our organ function. That's how we're nourishing ourselves in order to have a stronger, healthier, more vibrant body to carry our brain around in. So our internal environment is, well, what are we eating? What are we digesting? What are we absorbing? Which nutrients are we taking? How are we altering our internal chemistry to shift just a little bit more towards alkalinity or basic, a little bit further away from acidity? We're going to be just on the alkaline side of neutral. What's our external environment? Well, for you guys, that's me. If you're paying attention, I'm part of your external environment. I'm what's going on around you. What's my external environment? You guys. So I want to be aware. I want to be able to recognize my environment, and I want to be able to adapt and overcome to it. So I have people in the room. I'm looking around. I'm noticing who they are. I have a pretty good handle on who they are. I don't find, or I don't suspect that anybody in here is a threat to me. So I'm just going to continue standing here and talking. Pretty straightforward. Now, what if a military hit squad stormed the building? They've just become a pretty big part of the external environment. And let me ask you this: you think I'm going to stand here, continue talking, or am I going to duck for cover and hide underneath something? Your boy is a coward. I'm hiding underneath something, as I would imagine everybody else would be. Our our internal environment. I eat pretty healthy. If you found me in Giant Eagle shopping and you rummaged through my cart and you looked at what I'm purchasing and bringing home for my own human consumption, all right, you're going to probably find some grapefruit flavored soda in my cart. Maybe you'll find a little dessert, but you're going to find a lot of fruits and vegetables. And if there's meat in it, let me assure you it's from that no hormone, no steroid added selection, not from the meat like substance laced with chemicals, because I'm trying to protect my internal chemistry. I'm trying to nourish my internal environment in a way compatible with being able to have good health or being able to adequately and successfully recognize, interact with, adapt to, and overcome my environments, both internally and externally. And food is a key component to that. Likewise, nutritional supplementation. We're missing a lot in our food. Highly urge you to continue or to begin taking the appropriate nutrition for your own personal needs. That's one of the things we do here. We talk about individual specific nutrient plans. But what I do, I'm a mechanical guy. I'm practicing chiropractic. I do hands on chiropractic adjustments for the spine, for the extremities. I do what's called PNF, proprioceptive neurofacilitated stretching, assisted stretching, which later today, my colleague Dr. Ross and I are going to take a deeper dive and talk about and maybe even do a little bit of show and tell with some demonstration of how the stretching techniques work. I do trigger point muscle therapy. I press on those tight spots in muscles, and sometimes I press down on a spot where the neck and the shoulders meet, and the patient says, "Oh my God, I had no idea that. I feel that in my fingers." And then we hold it for a few seconds, and the sensation in the fingers goes away, and the tenderness in that spot where the neck and shoulders meet goes away, and the patient turns their head from side to side and says, "Oh my God, that's amazing." That's trigger point muscle therapy. I do some of that. I do low tech rehab. That means we do exercises and rehab exercises that really don't entail a lot of equipment, that not going to send you off to a major sporting goods store to buy hundreds of dollars worth of equipment, or I guess these days, thousands of dollars worth of equipment for your living room. Not going to send you off for a membership to an expensive gym that you have to spend 2 hours driving to, finding parking, exercising, and navigating yourself home. I mean, if you want those things, we can talk about them. I'm glad to talk about them. But I'm interested in the kind of rehab that involves moving your body. Your body is the most important equipment that you have. I might ask you to use a shower towel or some ice, but that's what low tech rehab is about. In fact, let's do a little bit more low tech rehab. Once again, power posture. We're standing, making ourselves big. We're reaching for the spot where the ceiling and the wall meet. We're holding this position and we are exercising our best posture that we possibly can, standing up straight and tall, reaching high and out, taking up space, and feeling more and more powerful in our position, using our subconscious, using our body as a tool to drive our subconscious mind, which will in turn change our conscious mind status. Let's do some more low tech rehab. One of my favorite exercises, I think the most important exercise, is to do deep breathing exercise. When somebody is injured and we want to think about what's it going to take to make them feel better, what can we do to help them restore the ability to better recognize, interact with, adapt to, and overcome their environment, both internally and externally? Or simply put, what can we do to help them restore to good health? Um, we can talk about all the nutritional supplements in the world. We can talk about all the chiropractic adjusting in the world. But I'm going to suggest to you that the most important thing is to make sure they're getting a sufficient amount of oxygen. Got to be a good breather. So let's take a couple of good deep breaths together. What I'd like everybody to do, assuming you're not driving, assuming you're not at work, sneaking in a little bit of Dr. Orbach time on your device, and a little you're just chilling out with me and enjoying the moment. I want everybody to sit up as straight and tall as they possibly can. We're going to imagine that there's a string coming from the ceiling, attaching to the top of our heads, lifting it up. We're going to make ourselves as tall as possible from our belt buckle to the bottom of our rib cage. We're stretching, being tall in this region of our body, and our heads up, and our posture is good. Our shoulders are thrown back. And I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose, and your arms should be dangling to your sides. And as you breathe in through your nose, I want you to think about trying to touch the floor with your fingertips. So our hands and our arms and our shoulders are sinking further and further down as we inhale through our noses. So, what are we doing here? If we're busy reaching for the floor, we're going to pull our shoulder blades down with us. That means that as we take that deep breath, we can't shrug up. So, what we're doing is we're ensuring that these deep breaths are going to come from our diaphragm muscle, which is exactly what we want, and not from what are called the accessory muscles of respiration, which are these muscles at the top of your, above your chest, the front of your neck, that attach to your top of your rib cage and attach to your collarbone. That I don't want to be panting or gasping, and I over exaggerate more than a little, but I don't want to use these muscles as a pulley system to lift my rib cage up. So we're going to have our arms dangling to the floor. Deep breath in through your nose. And as you're inhaling, you're reaching for the floor with your fingertips, pulling your shoulder blades into the spot that they should be in as you breathe, not shrugging up. All right, one more time. I'm going to do a little bit less talking and we'll do 2 or 3 deep breaths together. In through your nose. And your chest is expanding as your lungs are expanding and stretching with all that delicious oxygen, and blow out through your mouths. Again, deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. One last time. In through your nose. Everything is expanding. And out through your mouth. So, anybody feel a little bit lightheaded? Anybody commenting on our from our virtual land? No. If you feel a little bit lightheaded doing this, that's a sign that you're breaking your metabolic threshold and you're getting more oxygen in than you're used to. I can't say that lightheadedness is a good thing, but I can certainly say that this is a good thing to get you to exercise and to improve your breathing mechanics and to flush your body with more oxygen. And as you become a better breather, where maybe 3, even 4 deep breaths now, you feel a little bit lightheaded, down the road, maybe that'll be 30 or 40 deep breaths. It's exactly what we want to show good improvement. So, chiropractic adjustments. I put my hands on people's bodies. I find those tight muscular spots and I press on them until they relax. And I think most of my patients would say that it's a wholly unpleasant experience while it's happening. I'm getting a few nods and agreements from my real life crowds. I stretch people's joints to our maximum amount of stretch, and then I put a mechanical force into it to get that stretch to hold a little bit longer. Sometimes it makes a popping noise, not always. I wish that were always. I wish I love that noise. I wish I could just walk down the street, point at people, and make them pop. That would be wonderful. But it doesn't quite work like that. In fact, some of the best adjustments are actually fairly silent ones. It disappoints me, but that's the reality. Um, when I encounter a patient, I like to work on them from head to toe. I mean, they're going to point. The patient is going to point to an area of the body and say, "I hurt here," and they're going to say, "My shoulder is killing me," and I'm going to devote some time to working on their lower back, and I'm going to devote some time to maybe working on a knee or an ankle. And I'm sure the patient is thinking to themselves, "Why am I here? You do not listen. I told you it was my shoulder. Why? What are you doing with my foot?" Well, we'll get to the answer to that in just a moment. When I encounter a patient, I would usually guesstimate that I could adjust them. I'm looking for the tightest spots in the skeleton, not just the spine, but the ankles, knees, hips, hands and wrists, elbows, shoulders. I'm looking for those tight spots that should be adjusted. I bet you find 20, 25 places per person. But when we do that trigger point work and when we do the assisted stretching and we really make people's bodies more pliable, we find that the secondary or the compensatory places where we would adjust people, just they resolve themselves, they fix themselves, they adjust themselves, and we can limit the practice to adjusting people in their primary areas of what are called their primary areas of restriction, not just taking care of a bunch of symptoms but actually addressing the real true causes of their tightness and their dysfunctional skeletal areas. So I think that I keep pretty good statistics on this, and I keep pretty good records, and I take pretty detailed notes. And those 20 to 25 places where I adjust people after the stretching and after the trigger point, they're much more realistically about 8 to 10. So I think that's pretty cool. Now, what do these adjustments and these stretching and the trigger point work? What is it what does it really do? Well, for starters, as I mentioned at the very beginning, what I see is that you're essentially a brain walking around with a nervous system connecting you to your body, and the body is a vehicle to transport the brain from point A to point B. It's protecting the brain, it's nourishing the brain. And so when we make a change in somebody's position or somebody's movement pattern, or we take their joints and move them through a complete range of motion, what we're going to do is, at the very least, at the bare minimum, we're going to excite what are called pressure sensitive joint mechanoreceptors. What pressure sensitive joint mechanoreceptors do is they travel through the spine, through the nervous system, into the spinal cord. And when I say through the nervous system, I should be saying through the peripheral nerves, the threads and ropes that live in your arms and in your torso and in your legs. And that messaging, those joint mechanoreceptors are triggering messages through those peripheral nerves into the spinal cord, up to the brain, in order to say, one, hey, we're moving. Two, here's a source of stimulation. Fire, Mr. Brain, please fire at a higher frequency. And when the brain is firing at a higher frequency, then we have more neurological output that can go to be used anywhere else in the body. Now, we talked at the very beginning about how there are 3 trillion bits of information per second that the brain is transmitting back and forth with the body. So, if we have a higher frequency of firing of the brain, more of those messages are going to be heard. The brain is going to get more reciprocal communication coming back. We're going to uh, um, we're going to be operating as a far more highly efficient, high efficient functional system. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. So now would be a good time for a shameless plug for a combination of the Pro Reds and the Pro Oranges, two powdery superfoods that Nutritional Frontiers puts out. Antioxidants, a little bit of energy, and you add the right tasty beverage from the water fountain, and it's rehydrating and rejuvenating to your voice that you might be losing if you're speaking. Yes, I got a question. The question is, what are the oranges for? The oranges have some naturally occurring caffeine in them. Um, because of the makeup of the orange fruit and the orange vegetable that goes into it, we have beta carotene, which is helpful as part of a protocol that would help to be a component of a liver detoxification. Um, those are the two big ones. So a little bit of liver detoxification through the beta carotene. Of course, oranges include some vitamin C and the naturally occurring caffeine, so that I can be full of, I believe it's called vim and vigor as I stand here and talk. So we're talking about those joint mechanoreceptors and adjusting the spine or the knee or the ankle, and we're firing off some neurology, and we're getting the brain to fire at a higher frequency, causing us to be a set of more efficient systems combining into one big human system. The other thing that, at the very least, that adjusting patients does is it will inhibit the nociceptive system. So we have joint mechanoreceptors that are going to stimulate the brain and increase the frequency of firing. And then we have nociceptors, an entirely different neurological phenomenon. And when the nociceptors are excited, they tell the brain it's time to start experiencing pain. The nociceptors are a mechanism to tell the brain that there's tissue destruction, and the brain may likely interpret that as pain. Now, I do these chiropractic adjustments that I'm so fond of performing, and I can talk about ad nauseum because I want to use them as a tool to help my patients have better balance, better breathing mechanics, better at orienting their bodies in space, being able to move more comfortably and flexibly for greater ranges of motion, and in essence, just feel more comfortable living in the body that they have. Your body's really your only true home. I don't really advertise or brand myself or explain to patients that we're here to treat pain. Pain is a symptom of nociceptive activation, and we're going to try and shut off that nociceptive activation. But different people have different pain tolerances. So if we say that we're here to treat pain, and somebody has one of these pain tolerances that's just absolutely off the charts and they hardly feel anything, there's a good chance we can help get rid of their pain in really one or two treatments. If somebody has a lower threshold for pain and their sensitivities are offended very easily, and the smallest little thing sets them off in pain, and they remain in pain for longer periods of time than one would expect based on the stimulus that put them there in the first place. They could need several different modalities, not just the chiropractic, to help get out of pain. So we're not going to make big promises and big guarantees about chasing people's pain out of their body. We're going to make big promises about shutting down their nociceptive afferent system, or the signaling that tissue has been destroyed. Pain might be one of the symptoms. What are some of the other symptoms? When the nociceptor system has been triggered, something like 2/3 of those nociceptors travel to the brainstem. What goes on in the brainstem? Well, our breathing mechanics, for one thing, our ability to sleep, keeping our sympathetic nervous system suppressed or allowing it to escape. Our sympathetic nervous system is our all wound up, tight fight or flight experience, and we don't want to be all wound up tight or tightly in our fight or flight. We want to be more in a relaxed state as we cruise through life. So the more we turn on these nociceptors, the more sympathetic activity we're going to have, and we want to reduce that. All happening in the brainstem. So when people are in severe pain, chances are good they're having a difficult time sleeping. Chances are good that they're short of breath. Chances are good that they're irritated and irritable. Chances are good that their heart rate has escaped and their blood pressure has gone up. These are all groups of symptoms that go hand in hand, that go together. So when we do chiropractic adjustments, we're triggering the nervous system in a way as to just shut down that nociceptive system, and we're gonna have less of that experience. So far, so good. Questions, comments, moral outrages? None from the live crowd. I see. That's okay. Maybe we'll say something that'll trigger people, and we'll get some more excitement down the road. I already did. All right, I've already triggered people. My live and in person crowd is triggered. I feel like success. Let's do this before we move on and talk more about nociceptors and things that we can do to inhibit them, and the correlating nutritional supplementation to help protect us from these problems. Let's do some more power posture, and let's do some more deep breathing, and then get back to the matter at hand. So once again, I'm standing. My feet are wider than shoulder width apart. I am reaching for the spot where the ceiling and the wall meet, and I'm just going to hold this position for a moment in time, maybe a little bit longer than a moment, a long moment, short amount of time, however you phrase that. And I'm just using my body as a tool to stimulate my subconscious mind into believing that I'm a whole lot more powerful than I really am. I see people in my live crowd rolling their eyes at me. They know I'm weird. It's okay. I own it. All right, and we're going to relax. Now we're going to take a couple of deep breaths. So everybody sit up straight and tall. Our head is being lifted to the ceiling, being long and tall in our abdomen, and we have our arms dangling down to our sides. Take a deep breath in through your nose and feel your fingertips drifting towards the floor. We're going to hold it 1,001, 1,002, and blow out through your mouth. Again, deep breath in through your nose, reaching for the floor as you inhale. Hold it again, hold it some more, and blow out through your mouth. One last time. In through your nose. Shoulder blades are sinking because we're reaching for the floor. Hold it. 1,001, 1,002, and blow out through your mouth. And once again, hopefully, for those of you that participated, nobody's feeling lightheaded. If you are feeling lightheaded, you understand that that's a sign that you could benefit from a whole lot more of this. And once again, if you're somebody who's just generally not used to doing a lot of speaking and you're called upon to make a presentation and you feel your voice box turning down and your vocal cords going fatigued, I highly recommend the reds, oranges, and water. Anyhow, nociceptive afferents. What triggers the nociceptive system? As I said, tissue destruction and injury. When you tear or damage body tissue, you stimulate a pathway that the nervous system sends messages along, and that pathway lights up into your brainstem, which controls sleep, breathing, heart rate, to an extent, digestion, and then that pathway continues from your brainstem to areas of your brain that perceive emotions, that perceive mood, and that whole thing is being delivered bad news. That pathway is called a nociceptor. So we want to use chiropractic adjustments and stretches and trigger point work as a tool to shut down the pathway. We also want to use nutrition as a tool to inhibit the pathway. So if you have tissue destruction, some nutrients that would be pretty good. How about vitamin C? We talked about that. Is that there's certainly some vitamin C in the orange drink. Probably not enough to really be a therapeutic dosage, but there's no debating that it's there. Vitamin C helps to accelerate wound healing. HA plus, HA plus, the hyaluronic acid helps to lubricate joints. In laboratory conditions, in a petri dish, over time, it seems as if hyaluronic acid helps to regrow cartilage. Whether or not that happens in real human beings who consume other nutrients, who our bodies are not the controlled petri dish that a laboratory set of test tubes would be. We have other things going on in our system. If you're part of the study and we're looking to see if the hyaluronic acid helps to regrow cartilage inside of the body, well, what if you're being studied and you get hungry for a Snickers bar? Did all of that sugar invalidate the hyaluronic acid that you're taking? I don't know. I'm very slow and I'm skeptical that the hyaluronic acid will regrow cartilage in the human body. I do not want to be on record as saying that it does, but I will be on record as saying that the hyaluronic acid helps to lubricate joints. So, if we have a joint injury and we're unable to bend or extend our elbow as far as we normally can because the joint has been injured and now we're here in the range of motion instead of the whole thing, well, my first suggestion to you is to go see a chiropractor who understands the dynamic of how those joints move and which trigger points might be involved in restricting that movement, who will help you get rid of those trigger points or calm them down at the very least, and who will then make adjustments to the elbow to get it to move the way it's supposed to. But there's a nutritional component. And I think you would be very, very well served to have hyaluronic acid, specifically the HA plus, which will help to lubricate all the joints in your body. But we're talking specifically about the elbow in this case scenario. Another very good nutritional supplement to help repair tissue damage is magnesium. When we go on that double down on that elbow injury that we talked about that's restricted the range of motion, and I can't do my full chopping movement, but I'm trapped in this limited range of motion without complete flexion and extension. That means that also one of the problems that has to be addressed is going to be the tightness in the musculature. Tight muscles will clamp down into a state of tightness in order to protect the joint while it repairs. So we certainly want to get rid of those muscle spasms. Now, I think it's a good thing that the muscle tightens to protect the joint, but only up into a certain level. At a certain point, it's no longer a matter of self protection; it becomes part of a painful sequela of pathology. So we want to get tight muscles to relax as part of our tissue repair in order to shut off the nociceptive activation system. And magnesium, the mineral magnesium is excellent to do that. All of these conditions, these musculoskeletal injuries that I'm describing, these patterns of tightnesses, they all have an inflammatory component. When something goes physically wrong with the body, when we have a physical problem, when muscles become tight, when tendons start to lose their elasticity, when joints lose their range of motion, all that stuff that makes us feel like we're moving like a ratchety gear set, there's certainly going to be an inflammatory component. Got to get rid of the inflammation in order to calm the whole nociceptive system down. So, how do we do that? Now, my two favorite anti-inflammatories are fish oil and turmeric. Turmeric is one of the principal ingredients of the X Flame, a signature product from Nutritional Frontiers. We can find turmeric by itself, both from Standard Process and from Nutritional Frontiers. Awesome anti-inflammatory. Fish oil, also a fantastic anti-inflammatory. Fish oil has two active ingredients. One is EPA, Eric Peter Anthony, and the other is DHA, David Henry Anthony. So the EPA is good for heart health and anti-inflammation. So this is what we talk about with fish oil is we think about, well, why would somebody take fish oil? It's good for my heart. It's good for my anti-inflammatory. But the fish oil also contains that DHA that I mentioned a split second ago, and the DHA is very good for the nervous system. We're going to help to rebuild the insulation or the lining around the peripheral nerves throughout the body, the ropes and threads that live in our arms, legs, and our torso. We need DHA for that. And the DHA is also going to help to rebuild the brain. The brain is made of cholesterol. Fish oil, specifically the DHA, really good type of cholesterol to help feed our nervous systems. So, if we want to think about what are we going to do to shut off that nociceptive system or the system in which the brain is receiving messages generated by the body to indicate tissue destruction from a body injury, I like the combination of vitamin C, turmeric, fish oil, magnesium, and the hyaluronic acid. So far, so good? Question. The, the question is why do we need both oils, the fish oil and the hyaluronic acid? That's the question. Okay, think about the hyaluronic acid. Uh, um, is not so much of an oil the way the fish oil is, but it's a derivative from shellfish, and it lubricates joints. The fish oil is going to help to reduce inflammation, fortify the heart, fortify the nervous system. So they don't exactly do the same thing so much as they're working on two different body systems at the same time. The comment is I thought fish oil is a lubricant, and it is, but it doesn't necessarily target joints the way that the hyaluronic acid does. Um, it's think about the fish oil as being more directed toward the heart, lung, heart, anti-inflammation, brain, nervous system. How about virtual land? Any questions, comments, or moral outrages? Sorry, roll on. What else triggers nociceptive activity? Well, pH, our body's acid base relationship. We want to be just slightly basic or just slightly alkaline of neutral. We're on a 14-point scale. So, like 7.2 would be a pretty good place to be. That shifts you towards alkalinity. The lower the number, more acidic. So, if we want to be more alkaline, one of the things that we might consider doing would be a green superfood. Green superfoods help to uh, um, increase our acid base concentration towards more basic. Remember that acid is low, base is high, so we want to increase that scale. So I like the Nutritional Frontiers Lean Green Superfood Powder. It's a multi-system detoxification cleanse, highly targeted towards the digestive tract, highly targeted towards a liver cleanse. And for the purposes of our conversation, it really helps to shift the body towards alkalinity or basic. What else happens that would activate nociceptors? Well, the cell membrane can fail. Every single cell of our body, and there are quite a few of them, the smallest noticeable, observable little piece of life, the cell has a membrane around it. And that membrane is ever so slightly negatively charged, about the they're called negative millivolts, 0.57 millivolts. And when that charge is appropriate, we allow specific nutrients to pass into the cell, all the nutrients that the cell might need in order to replicate itself and carry on its own vital function. Uh, um, when the cell membrane fails, when it's either torn or it becomes too far positive of that magic number, negative 57, um, the cell membrane is going to fail, and we're not going to be able to eliminate waste out of the cell. We're not going to be able to bring nutrients into the cell. And when that happens, we activate the nociceptive afferent system. So, what we want to do is we want to do specific nutrition in order to maintain the integrity of our cell membranes. What could we do to that? Well, first of all, we have that same fatty layer that insulates the nerves, very similar fatty membrane protection layer for each individual cell. So let's circle back to our fish oil. When we talk about a good nutritional protocol, we're going to rattle off the names of some nutritional entities. We're going to talk about vitamins, minerals, proprietary blends. And if we're doing it right, you're going to see the same nutrients have multiple purposes in the human body. So, just a moment or two or three ago, we talked about that fish oil in the context of how do we do heart health? How do we get rid of inflammation? How do we promote better cell membranes, cell walls? How do we promote better nervous system installation? And it all starts to blend together. And hopefully, you can see that one of my take home messages is the importance of fish oil for multi organ protection systems. What else do we need for good promotion of healthy cell membranes? We need ATP, adenosine triphosphate. In the study of biochemistry, we're going to put food into our mouths, or nutrition, which is a form of food. And we want to derive as much energy and as much usefulness and good stuff out of our food as we possibly humanly can. So when we put nutrition into our bodies, that nutrition is going to follow a complex series of chemical reactions, and one of these reactions is going to take us down a pathway where we're going to derive ATP, energy, out of our foods. So what do we need for energy? Well, first of all, we have to have coenzyme Q10. Nope, back up a second. What do we need for energy? First of all, we need oxygen. We've talked about this deep breathing exercise and how important it is for healing and general well being and for keeping our bodies to be a more efficient organism. Well, on a very specific example, we need to have that oxygen as part of the primary pathway is transforming our food into ATP energy. We got to have oxygen. Without oxygen, the whole reaction fails at the beginning, and all we get is the glucose. With oxygen, we have the whole cycle makes its way through, and we start to generate good metabolites and all the things we need to sustain ourselves. So once we've had a sufficient amount of oxygen, we need to have coenzyme Q10 to promote that whole reaction from stopping itself and allowing this chain of reactions to progress through what are called glycolysis, the citric acid cycle, the electron transport chain. All of these reactions are going to help us derive many, many more units of ATP, which are going to promote good pumps on our cell walls, allowing those cell membranes to do exactly what they're supposed to do in order to be healthy. In order to be healthy, remember, we're talking about recognizing, adapting to, and overcoming your internal and external environment. So, if we're going to adapt to and overcome our internal environment, we certainly absolutely have to have healthy cell walls, healthy cell membranes at the appropriate charge, maintained by a good population of ATP. And in order to do that, we need the coenzyme Q10. Now, in the bonus round, I've never talked about this, but we mentioned fish oil in terms of multifactorial, multi-purpose, where the fish oil is an anti-inflammatory. It's good for heart health. It's good for brain, nervous system health. We're going to talk about the coenzyme Q10 the same way. The coenzyme Q10 helps us derive ATP and is adenosine triphosphate or energy currency from our food, but it's also critically important as an antioxidant. The coenzyme Q10 scavenges around the body looking for basically metabolic debris and helps us clean that debris up and get rid of it. And the coenzyme Q10 has an affinity for heart tissue. So we're going to be using this as a tool to make sure that we get enough energy out of our food, while at the same time we are going to use it as a tool to keep our heart healthy and clean. Multifactorial nutrients doing many different things at once, collective side bonuses. What else do we need to fortify our cell membranes? We talked about the building the ATP. We're going to need to have more fuel to fuel the mitochondria, the power plant of the cell, to act as a production factory, where we're going to build nutrients in our mitochondria. The power fuel. It's a nutritional frontiers powder, which has a D-ribose sugar in it, and that D-ribose sugar also very good for heart health. Also very good to create fuel for our cellular power plants in the mitochondria, where most of our production occurs. So far, so good. So once again, we're talking about processes that are going to set off that nociceptive system that chiropractic adjustments shut down and the chiropractic adjustments inhibit. But once we have that nociceptive system activated, we're triggering our brain to perceive bad stuff is happening. We're triggering our brain stem to make sleep difficult, to make our blood pressure and our heart rates escape, to limit digestion, to make our breathing shallow and rapid. So we've been talking all along about the value of chiropractic adjustments to shut all that down, and which nutritional supplements are going to complement this chiropractic care in order to suppress those harmful messages from getting through. We've talked about cell membrane destruction. We've talked about a pH that's shifted more towards acid, and we've talked about tissue destruction so far. The fourth thing we got to talk about is temperature. We have to acknowledge that temperature changes and barometric pressure changes will stimulate those harmful messages traveling through to the brain. Now, what can we do about temperature? What can we do about the external environment changing the pressure, the barometric pressure, and the temperature that our bodies are subjected to, that would indeed activate harmful messaging systems in our brain? Well, can't change the weather. Sorry to report, but we know that there are Steeler bars all over the country. Actually, in fact, all over the world. We know that Pittsburgh is a coldish, dreary-ish, wet-ish climate. And we know that people who've really struggled with that have moved to Arizona and to New Mexico. And then they report back to friends and family and say, my trick knee is not tricky anymore. Ever since I got into this weather change, I felt so much better. Ever since I moved to the desert, I've had so much less aches and pains. My arthritis feels like it's cleared up. And that's real. That is very real. So what I want to suggest is dress appropriately for the weather. That I know that this is, we've had some nice summer days lately, but when winter comes along, don't underdress for it. Don't overdress for the summer. We want to recognize, interact with, and adapt to and overcome our external environment as well. So be mindful of the climate of your house. Be mindful of your own specific temperature needs. Some people prefer the cold. Some people prefer the hot. Position yourself in a place that could be most advantageous for your own well-being. Now, before we wrap it up and take any questions, let's one more time do a couple deep breaths together. So everybody is going to sit up as straight and tall as possible. That eyelet on the top of our head is attached to the ceiling, making us our heads up. We're as tall as we possibly can be from our belt buckle to the bottom of our chest, our sternum. And we're going to inhale through our noses. And as we inhale through our noses, we're reaching for the floor to prevent us from shrugging our shoulders up. So big deep breath in through your nose and reach. And hold it for 1,001, 1,002, and blow out through your mouths. Again, in through your nose, reaching for the floor the whole way, expanding, and blow out through your mouths. One last time, big deep breath in through your nose. Everything is tall and long. We're reaching for the floor, and blow out through your mouths. Okay, so why do we do this deep breathing? We want to get this air into our systems. The oxygen comes into our system to do what? To drive cellular reactions, to allow us to produce more energy from the food that we're eating, to promote good healing. Along the way, we're practicing good posture. Along the way, our brain is the organ in the body that's the most heavily dependent on oxygen, and we want to feed it. This is an example of low-tech rehab. No matter what your condition might be, whether it's headaches, recovering from an ankle sprain, or maybe you just feel stiff and want to come in for treatment to make you more flexible. Deep breathing exercises have to be at the top of the checklist for things that you can do for yourselves. And with that, I want to thank you all for your very kind attention, for the members of the audience here who've indulged me and participated with me and played along, and for the people who might be watching or participating in virtual land. I'm happy to have you guys too. So I'll just quickly check in with IT Savant Phil. At least there are no moral objections. Thank you so much for your kind attention. And we'll be back shortly with our noon roundtable.